wish those old monsters would come back. Excuse me? They're just so enjoyable to hunt. You do realize that we hunted them because they were threats, right? Yeah, but people were dying. What about fun? Entire villages slaughtered. Well, you can't spell slaughter without laughter. Fine, I get it. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, Sunbreak has been wonderful so far. Of course, the expansion itself as a base experience was quite nice, but the title updates that we have also been getting have been quite a breath of fresh air as well. We've had some returning monsters who got an upgrade, and we've also had entirely new variations. But as it currently stands, we have multiple title updates remaining for Sunbreak, all promising more and more monsters to be added to the game. And as someone who tries to stay as blind as possible to what will actually be coming within these updates, I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring to say some monsters that we've already seen in the series that should absolutely return to this game in these updates. Of course, new monsters are always the goal. They are the most fun experiences, the most surprising things, something that we've never seen before. But a good returning face reborn and a fancy new moveset is always a lovely thing to get as well. Before we dive too deeply into this, then, of course, my personal most requested monster just in general is Duramboros. He's my favorite of all of the monsters. He just is. But at this point in time, I don't actually want him to be in Sunbreak. The main reason being that the parameters are sort of already set, so to say. For Duramboros to truly shine, he would need a big foresty map with trees that have destruction physics, and that map just is not in Sunbreak, and I don't really see them adding it just for him either. So in his case, I will happily wait until Monster Hunter 6 as long as he is actually in there, Capcom. That said, I will try to keep this list to at least somewhat reasonable expectations, especially considering how deep we are into the game, and for a monster to be added at this point, it would have to be quite the threat, so as not to just be an easy walkover in our late game gear and builds. Without further ado then, number 10.
You hear that sound?
Agnaktor. This is the lowest relatively threatening monster that I've included on this list, and that's why I've also put him in the lowest slot. He's a long-beloved monster who desperately needs a second chance to shine, who truly deserves a return in the new style of gameplay as well that we have in the modern games. Not only this, but his little guys, the Agnaktor, are already in the game, already wandering around the lava caverns, and so it just feels sort of unfair that he isn't here. Of course, there are other monsters you could say that exact same thing about, but Agnaktor is one of these that is actually the most likely to pose an actual late game threat if they pumped him up right and gave him some deadly new moves. And of course, they could even put in his subspecies Glacial Agnaktor as the actual proper update monster too, which would not only provide more of a threat than the base version, but also give us a new ice-based monster, which we just haven't had for a little while now. His clack beam is iconic, his digging is done in a more unique way than most other digging monsters, and while most of these I specifically want to see done in Sunbreak's gameplay uniqueness, this one is just sort of a monster that I think needs to come back at some point and already has the perfect location to live in, especially as the Agnaktor already live there in the lava caverns. Number 9. Molten Tigrex. This monster is all but expected to come back at this point, mostly because the dev team has made a point of putting pretty much every rare species that has ever existed into Sunbreak by this point. As of right now, there are only 2 of them not in the game, and the other one is Abyssal Legiacris, who just wouldn't be right to exist without underwater combat, which this game doesn't have, and, well, also base Legiacris hasn't been brought back anyways. Tigrex, however, is already around, and so Molten Tigrex is far from unlikely. As for why I would want him, he's essentially just explosive, superpowered Tigrex. His charges cause explosions as he runs, he can put blast status on hunters, he can do a big old explosive roar multiple times in a row. He's just essentially the super version of Tigrex. He may be a little bit less interesting than the uniqueness of Lucent Nargacuga compared to regular Nargacuga, but I could totally see a revamped version of this monster not only being challenging, but quite enjoyable too, especially in a game where we have the ability to dodge longer distances with wire bugs or use the counters that most of the weapons have now. He definitely fits in with the threat level that we have reached, and I just think that a remake of this monster would be quite the fun experience to fight. Number 8.
There's 2 of them?
Rey and Lolo Gougarf. That's right, I'm reaching into the pile of cool Monster Hunter Frontier monsters as well. Espinas being added to Sunbreak opened a big wide floodgate to the possibilities of additions to the main series. Beforehand, bringing monsters over from Frontier seemed pretty unlikely, but these days, much less so. That said, there is a spectrum of Frontier monsters, one that goes from relatively believable creatures to absolutely insane. For example, I don't think we'll ever see burning, freezing Eruzerion in the main series, but Rey and Lolo Lolo Gougarf? That I can definitely believe, especially with Thunder Serpent Narwa bringing at least the concept of magnetism into reality within this game. That said, these specific monsters were originally a bit lower on the threatening scale, but I could easily see them in a remade state being quite the unique challenge within our current gameplay. There aren't many fights in the series that are designed to make you fight against multiple monsters simultaneously, and this one is quite unique in that they are separate entities from each other, but have a load of combo attacks that they play off of each other with. They use magnetic powers to push and pull you around, and they're just a really fun concept. They're basically luchadors that are fighting around as a tag team, and I just want to see them brought back into the new world and given a proper update. Number 7, Inagami. Diving immediately back into that pool of frontier monsters, we have one of the unique Elder Dragons from that game. Inagami is a truly inventive monster that I absolutely love the ideas behind. He lives in a bamboo forest and can control the growth of the plant life around him, shooting up new trees out of the ground. He has a unique ability to sort of heal over his own broken parts, and it uses the sleep status as a weapon. We don't have many sleep monsters. More sleep monsters is always a good thing in my mind, especially as, sleep weapons are fun too. This is a dragon truly in tune with nature just as a whole, and there simply aren't many like it out there. The bamboo growing out of the ground mechanic is a little bit funky, but when you understand how the creature works, it all sort of makes sense. And the only real thing that I think is keeping this monster out of Sunbreak at this point in time is that he sort of needs his own map to work properly. You could argue he might actually make sense on the Shrine runes with the actual things that are there, but I don't think that would quite do him enough justice either. I think he's one that deserves to return and that Sunbreak would be a good game for it, but he may not be the most likely for that reason alone. I do hope we see him in the main series someday though, really. Number 6.
I'm gonna hold it in my mouth.
Deviljho. I'm of two minds on this. Of course, Deviljho has been in every Monster Hunter game since his initial introduction to the series in the 3rd generation, every one except Rise and now Sunbreak, so it isn't necessarily out of order for him to take a short break before inevitably returning in the next game. However, I can't deny that the game just sort of feels a bit odd without him around. He's almost like an expected entity at this point. He is a relatively unique creature of Elder Dragon level power, but not being an Elder Dragon, and he just sort of evens out the ecosystems. He does what he wants, and at least his base version does so through just sheer size and hunger, which is just such a fun thing to be able to fight. I do think if he was brought back in the title updates, they would probably also need to bring back Savage Deviljho just to put him properly on par with the players currently, but even then, that would be quite fun to fight again. This is a weird one because again, he was given significant updates and changes literally in the last game before this, but he's almost just a monster I think deserves to be in this game more than for any other specific reason. Number 5, Toa Teskuda. Back on the frontier train one more time, I think this would be the perfect introduction of origin species into the main series. Ancient, extra powerful versions of monsters. These are a really cool concept, and I think this monster is believable enough to possibly return. Not only that, but it is a super powered Elder Dragon, which in theory makes it more than enough of a threat to justify a slot at the top of a title update. This is for all intents and purposes an ice-based Teostra. Instead of clouds of blast, they make clouds of instantly freezing moisture, just forming icicles out of nowhere to drop on top of your face. They shoot out icy breaths and can even just straight up freeze you by causing a literal blizzard to flow around them. This is a fight that I could see getting a seriously cool overhaul if brought into the main series, and it would open up yet another door to interesting origin species being added in general, not only the ones from Frontier already, but possibly even some new ones as well that were never a part of that game, as I really do enjoy the concept of origin species in general. As well, more ice monsters is always just a good thing to have around, as there just aren't many, and I think this one could be made into even more of an impressive spectacle in a new style main series game. He also had a bit of a unique ailment in Frostbite, which is essentially just ice blight, but also it makes your stamina decrease faster, like you'd need a warm drink in a cold area. Not that that mechanic is in Sunbreak, but the fact that it isn't in Sunbreak means that you could use this mechanic and make it seem more unique as well. Number 4.
The big one.
Gammoth. And here we go into the upper half of the list with some particularly big hitters. Gammoth is an absolutely awesome monster from Monster Hunter Generations, one of the Fated Four, the group of flagships for that game. And, well, put plainly, it is the only member of this group not to be brought back since its original inception. Conceptually, this monster was incredible, a very unique creature that just moved particularly slowly, but hit like an absolute truck when it did catch you. She was a massive beast, one of the biggest things that we fought that you wouldn't quite call call an oversized monster that wouldn't need to be put in its own special arena of some sort or anything like that. It can suck you in with its trunk like a vacuum, which is a really cool attack. It covers itself in snow. It would even fit in the Frost Islands map that we already have. But most importantly, I want to see the actual combat for this monster redone, because I think it was initially the least exciting fight of the Fated Four, but could be changed up so much in the modern days of Monster Hunter. For example, its giant trunk, in theory, there's no real reason that it couldn't use it as more of a weapon, properly swinging it around, or even use it to pick up smaller monsters, not even just small monsters, but smaller large monsters, and just fling them around like a weapon the way that Deviljho can. It could cause massive dents in the ground with even just its stomps due to its sheer size, and I could totally see a remade Gammoth uniquely being the most threatening monster of all of the Fated Four if they did it right, which is why I think it actually fits in a title update. All you have to do is really play up her strongest assets and remake the moveset around it. Make her properly powerful, and it would be quite the enjoyable experience in my personal opinion. Number 3. Chaotic Gore Magala. This is the other one that I consider particularly likely to actually show up within a title update for this game. They seem very willing to bring in alternate powerful versions of monsters that already have their base version in the game, which makes this a great candidate. This is one of the cooler variants that's ever been made conceptually, and it is quite the unique creature too. At its base it is a Gore Magala, but it has a number of moves from Shagaru Magala as well, as it was interrupted in the process of transforming and evolving into its Elder Dragon state. As a result, what you get is a, well, chaotic mixture of both monsters' abilities, but in a much more aggressive way, from a monster that is clearly in pain just having not been allowed to complete its transformation. Given how well done both Gore and Shagaru have been done in Sunbreak, I not only expect this to have a really good chance of returning, but I can also just imagine that a redone chaotic Gore would be an incredible experience all around for everyone. Essentially just an amped up version of both monsters packed into one hyper aggressive creature. Number 2.
This one doesn't have any wings.
Amatsu, and more than anything else, this one just sort of feels right to be here, mostly because we have Wind Serpent Ibushi and Thunder Serpent Narwa already as main important monsters within the game, but there is another monster of a similar shape and somewhat similar ability set that has been left out, and that is Amatsu. This creature is an Elder Dragon completely in control of storms themselves, causing storms wherever it is and using both wind and water in extremely cool ways to hunt you down as a hunter. I could easily see them expanding this to also include thunder just to make it even more of a threat for this game, and bring her into Sunbreak as sort of like the final boss, almost like Ibushi and Narwa combined and then put some more on top. Of course, this would also mean scaling up Amatsu's power level in general, but given what we have already seen it capable of doing, I could totally believe it, and well, I sort of just want to have it. It can create straight up tornadoes, it can fire water beams with the power of laser beams, and I would just be so happy to see a remade version of Amatsu that is essentially the overlord of the elemental serpents, more powerful than any of them but incorporating the attacks that the others use as well, using the wind balls of Ibushi, for example, to shove you up into the air. All in itself would just be an extremely interesting mix-up to the way that the fight used to be. I could see this monster being done well in any Monster Hunter game, but Sunbreak just feels like a uniquely fitting place due to what we already have around. Number 1. Ahtal-Ka. I've mentioned my need to see this monster in this game basically since Rise was originally announced. Throughout the game, as hunters, we have been using wire bugs and iron silk to use augmented attacks and to control monsters. But we are not the first people to do this type of thing, because a monster did it before us, and that monster is Ahtal-Ka, the end boss of Generations Ultimate, flinging around girders and water wheels and dragonators at the end of a line of its own golden silk like a super-powered flail, and even making a goddamn mech out of the broken pieces of fortresses that it has destroyed itself. This monster would be another perfect end boss to Sunbreak itself, a final title update monster. Even if the fight itself was mostly unchanged, it would be a totally different ballpark with an experience with hunters having wire bugs. You could make us dodge vertically over a whole bunch of its attacks, and of course the mech part would be way more interesting if we were expected to climb the mech with our own bug movement rather than walking around to set points and climbing up bits of rope. But even then, I think that they could make this way cooler, because of course Ahtal-Ka has silk of its own, so you could make this fight play around with the hunter's usage of wire bugs in unique ways that other fights just don't really make sense to. You could give her the ability to basically disable your wire bugs, or maybe even steal them. Like, imagine if Ahtal-Ka could just take one of your wire bug charges away from you so you only had one by default, and then with that she could swing 2 dragonators instead of 1 or something like that because she literally has more wire bugs. I just think that there won't really be a better time to bring Ahtal-Ka back than within Sunbreak due to how fitting she would be with the mechanics we are already playing around around with. And that's about it, everyone. The top 10 monsters that I think need to be brought into Sunbreak through the remaining title updates. Of course, some of these are definitely more likely to happen than others, but I think some of them not only deserve to be brought back, but specifically in the setting of this game, with the mechanics that we currently have to change their fights in fun and interesting ways. How do you feel about this list? What other monsters would you like to see brought back specifically for Sunbreak itself with its unique mechanics? And past that, what other kinds of new variants or rare species or subspecies do you think that we might get for the monsters that are already in the game? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.